If you are living here in St. Augustine, Florida, or if you're considering moving to St. Augustine or St. Johns County, you want to make sure that you watch this whole video. There are some major changes that are happening to the taxes here in St. Johns County and also the state of Florida as a whole, and you want to make sure you know about it. What's up, everyone? My name's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, and if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida. So there are some major changes that are happening to our tax environment here in the state of Florida and right here in St. Johns County. They just got voted on in the November election, and there are some major changes that you should know about. Okay guys, so in today's video, I'm going to cover three things. One is going to be the state of Florida and their changes regarding Amendment 5, and two are going to be about St. Johns County and their tax changes. One is going to be about sales tax and one is going to be about property taxes. We're going to cover that a little bit later in the video because I want to cover the good stuff first. So one of the major changes that was on the November ballot was Amendment 5, which was a change to the homestead exemption. Now, if you're not familiar with the homestead exemption, that is something for Floridians that gives you up to $50,000 off of your taxable value when it comes down to filing your taxes. So if your property is, the market value is $300,000, your taxable value is $250,000, if you make it your primary residence, you could have a taxable value of $200,000. The first $25,000 of that $50,000 amount is applied to all property taxes, even the ones levied by school districts. The second part of that $25,000 exemption applies to the assessed value between $50,000 and $75,000, but does not apply to school levied tax. So that's a really confusing way of saying that's a $50,000 difference of your taxable value and what you're actually assessed for if you have the homestead exemption, which means you are using that as a primary residence here in the state of Florida. The one good thing here in St. Johns County is they actually have a property tax estimator. So if you go on the property appraiser website, let's say if you're interested in 123 Banana Street, you type that into the property appraiser, it pulls the property into the tax district that it's associated with, and then you can also estimate property taxes based on that tax district. You can throw in the homestead exemption, any other exemptions you might have, such as being like a widower or being a veteran, any type of disability exemptions, you can throw them all in there, and it'll give you an estimate of what your property taxes are going to be on that property. It's a fantastic resource. I use it all the time, and one thing I will say about it is it typically shoots a little higher than what you on average see your property tax bill to be. Around 80 to 85% is typically what the number comes in of what the estimate actually is. So if you have a $10,000 tax bill, a lot of times we're seeing them come in around $8,500. So the estimate is much higher than what the actual result is. And for me personally, I'd rather give you the higher number and it comes in lower so that you don't come after me and say, Tom, you lied to me about my taxes. I'd rather you say, hey, actually my taxes got cheaper. Thank you so much. Yeah, boy. So in November, Florida voters approved Amendment 5, which is going to change how homestead exemption works. Amendment 5 is going to be introducing an annual adjustment to the homestead exemption that is based on inflation and the CPI. Starting January 1 in 2025, the second $25,000 exemption will be adjusted annually based on inflation. The adjustment will use the Consumer Price Index, CPI, as reported by the U.S. Department of Labor. If CPI indicates a positive change, the exemption amount will increase accordingly. The whole goal of Amendment 5 is to help Floridians seek a little bit of refuge when it comes down to these increasing prices. Now, we've talked about it in other videos, but essentially homeownership across the board in Florida has gotten more expensive. Whether it comes down to the home itself and the home prices, it comes down to the insurance, or it just comes down to interest rates, which is a national problem as well. It's just gotten more expensive to live in the state of Florida than it was even 5 years ago. And it's changed drastically. So Amendment 5 is one of the ways that Florida is trying to mitigate that and mitigate some of the rising costs on homeowners by tying the homestead exemption to inflation. So I wanted to start with that because it is a good thing, right? It is going to give you a little bit of savings, but in reality, I don't think it's going to make too much of a dent in someone's cost to own a home over the long run, right? Now, maybe if you're in the home for 10, 20 years, but most people don't live in the home that long. So I just don't see it making the changes based on inflation that would really reflect what we've seen in the change in home prices and insurance over the past couple of years. barely makes a dent in it, in my opinion. Now, I'm still trying to figure out how the math would work on this, but I ran a couple scenarios through ChatGPT just to have that help me out, because it's kind of a confusing situation, tying things to inflation, a second part of the homestead exemption. I'm no tax expert. I'm just trying to do my best here for you guys. But it really came out off of a $500,000 house, an annual adjustment of about $7.50. To me, that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything to anyone that I know of. That is a coffee and a donut at most places. So hopefully I'm making a mistake and I'm calculating this wrong and I'm not seeing the real value of what this is supposed to do for homeowners. But based on a $500,000 house, a $7.50 adjustment just doesn't cut it. So I guess in a way that is actually bad news. Not really great. It's like, hey, we passed this thing. It's going to help maybe just a little bit, but I guess it's good they're tying it to inflation. So if it does get out of control, maybe that'll change their tax bill a good bit, but I feel like there needs to be more done for the people that have been living here for an extended period of time. And guys, I just covered the homestead exemption and how that's going to change. I'm going to cover a couple other tax things here. If you're seeing something that I'm explaining wrong, or you maybe have a different insight that could educate me and inform me of what's going on, please leave it in the comments below. I'm here to learn and I'm here to help you guys learn. So I'm not always going to be right, and I'm aware of that, right? I'm okay with learning something new. So if you can educate me and make me understand this better, go ahead and fire it off in the comments below or reach out to me directly. Okay, and now on to the bad news, and it's gonna get more expensive news as we go along in this video. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is sales tax. We voted on sales tax if we're going to keep a referendum that was initially created in 2015. This was originally created in 2015 to give a half-cent sales tax rate for St. Johns County. The state of Florida sales tax is 6%. We have a half-cent sales tax on top of that, making our sales tax here in St. Johns County 6.5%. So the good thing is that if you've been living here for 10 years, you're not going to notice a difference. If you've been living here for 20 years, you were probably mad about the sales tax raising before, and you're not going to be too happy that it's pretty much staying the same. So in this past election, they voted to keep the sales tax at 6.5% and not lower it and go back to the 6%. The reason for this is because we're building schools like crazy, and that was the initial reason that they put the tax on there in the first place. People were flocking to St. Johns County because our public education system here is really great. We were ranked #1 in the state for many, many years. We're now actually ranked #2, but that's actually a really great position to be in reality compared to the rest of the state of Florida. So that hasn't changed since 2015. There are still people moving here, if not more people moving here than there were back in 2015, and we're starting to see some problems with our schools, with our infrastructure, and that is why they want to keep this half-cent sales tax referendum around. The revenue generated from this sales tax program is to go to infrastructure, from building schools and inputting the roads around the schools. It's going to go to technology improvements to help out the students within the school, and it's also going to go to the maintenance of the schools in St. Johns County. And just to give you an idea, back before the pandemic, I think they built a school in 2019 and it cost them roughly $36 million, and they were fighting back and forth because they're building, I think, 3 more schools here in the next 2 years that are set to open, and they were fighting back and forth with a developer of trying to get a good bid, and it got to a stalemate, and they actually settled at $63 million. So I don't know what happened with inflation, but apparently it's doubled everything, and that is the cost of schools. So the half-cent sales tax renewal has to stay around in order to pay for those things. There is one good thing to note about the sales tax being 6.5% and it not changing, is that about 38% of the revenue comes from people that are visiting our town. So that is a good, healthy chunk of that sales tax that is from people that aren't even from here contributing to our schools. So I can't be too mad about it. Another good thing about our sales tax here in St. Johns County is that it is cheaper than our surrounding counties. We're at 6.5%, where our surrounding counties are a little bit higher. They're not much higher. Sales tax is really not making a big difference, and you making purchases or not making purchases, you might see another half-cent around the surrounding counties. And that also really doesn't matter here in St. Johns County, because at the end of the day, our property is more expensive here in St. Johns County. The cost of living in St. Johns County versus all the surrounding counties is more expensive. And now we're going to talk about property taxes. And property taxes is something that we didn't want to see go up. Personally, in my opinion, I think they should have added a special tax district to downtown St. Augustine so that we can take that 38% up above 50%, so that we can make the people that are visiting our town, using our roads, going to our downtown, be able to pay for our infrastructure projects for our school, even more so than it already is. I'm not sure if that's possible, but it seems like something that could be possible. But another thing that was on the November ballot was to raise property taxes by 1 mil. A new 1 mil increase has been proposed for the next 4 years. And if you know anything about government, they typically don't go away. So I imagine this next 4 years will turn into the next 8 years, which will turn into the next 30 years. It's probably never going to go back down. So what does that mean for you as a homeowner here in St. Johns County? This increase equates to $1 for every $1,000 of assessed property value. For example, a property valued at $360,000 would see an annual tax increase of $360. I don't know about you, but that seems like a lot of money, and especially when we just talked about maybe a potential savings with the homestead exemption, this just wipes that completely out of the water with a 1 mil increase. So that is a huge increase for a ton of homeowners, and especially if you're looking at the 300,000 range, forget about it. Look at the $1 million range. That is a good bit of money on an annual basis to go towards taxes. But why are they doing it? The additional funds are allocated to enhance salaries and benefits for teachers and support staff, aiming to attract and retain high-quality educators. That is one major problem that we've had here in St. Johns County, especially since the pandemic, is the cost of living here in St. Johns County has gotten so high and so outrageous that the local teachers, the people that work in government, the majority of our workforce in our industry here in St. Johns County is having a hard time being able to afford it. So unless you're a teacher making $55,000 a year and you have a spouse that's making $100,000 a year, you're more than likely not going to be able to afford a home here in the area unless you're shooting for like a townhome or a condo, and even then it's going to be slim pickings. The next thing they want to do is they want to invest in student welfare resources, including school nurses and mental health counselors. As we know, especially since the pandemic, it seems that mental health issues are on the rise, and maybe that's a result of over-medicating kids for the past 30 years, all the pharmaceutical ads that are on TV, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's just my opinion. But there are obviously some problems related with the pandemic, with not going to school, with wearing masks, and dealing with everything that had to go with COVID. It was a frightening and shocking time for many people, and as a grown adult, I could realize where kids could be kind of scarred by that. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. And the other allocation is to preserve and enhance educational programs such as science, technology, art, music, and athletic. These measures reflect the community's commitment to maintaining and improving the quality of education in St. Johns County amidst rapid population growth. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that this is a good use of a property tax increase? The one caveat that I have to say to all of this is like, okay, so let's say that you are a St. Johns County teacher. You bought prior to the pandemic. Properties were a lot more affordable then. Let's just say you're single, you bought a property and you're able to live here in St. Johns County, and you got a raise the past couple of years. They voted to give these teachers a raise. It wasn't very much. I'm going to say it's more based on bonus incentives of how their performance is in school, but they did get a slight raise, but I do not think it was enough. So that being said, if you own a $300,000 house here and your property taxes were to go up $300 a year, does that necessarily help that person? I don't know. It's hard to say. I want to say no right off the bat because their wages didn't change that much, right? So the wages didn't change that much, and in order to help teachers out, to pay them more money, they had to raise property taxes. So the teachers that own property taxes, or own property here in St. Johns County and pay property taxes, are now having to flip the bill in order to pay themselves more. I don't know if this makes sense. But then again, if you work for the government, how do you get more money? Well, you just tax the people that live in your area. So what's the right thing to do? So guys, I covered 3 changes to our taxes here in St. Johns County. I'd really love to hear what you guys think about this. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any additional insights. If you want to really lay it out for me, maybe I didn't understand something that I'm reading here and going over with you guys, please inform me. I'm here to be educated. I'm here to find out more stuff and to give you guys all the information that I find out. So I'm a student of the game, so please inform me if you do have any additional insight to what I'm talking about here. Guys, and that is it. I hope you learned a little bit about what's going on here with the state of Florida, St. Johns County taxes. If you did, please do me that solid and tap that subscribe button below. Like the video and comment if you have any additional questions about living here in St. Johns County. Until next time, guys, I'll see you soon.